Hello and welcome to our 6th mini module focused on SEL for educators. My name is Lindsey and on behalf of the team at Transforming Education, thank you for checking out this latest resource. As I mentioned, this is the 6th in a series of 6 mini modules pulled from our SEL for Educators Toolkit. So these short mini modules sort of sum up the information that is in the toolkit in its entirety. We are on the last one today, focusing on one of the 5 high leverage strategies for supporting SEL for educators. If you haven't yet checked out the first module, which is an overview, the what, the why, and the how of SEL for educators, I encourage you to go check out that one first, as it really frames the next 5 modules. If you've already checked that out, let's jump right in. So like I said, we're talking about the 5th in a set of 5 high leverage practices for focusing on educator SEL. As we've talked about before, these don't have to happen in any particular order. Ideally, these are all happening all the time through systems and structures and supports within the school setting. Today, we're digging into establish balance and boundaries, which is a critical area to consider, especially during this complicated time. So when we think about establishing balance and boundaries, why is this so key? What is it and why is it so important? Boundaries are the guidelines that we use to set expectations, responsibilities, and limits for ourselves and for others. And setting professional boundaries protects one's energy and attention while supporting long-term engagement in the work. So having those boundaries and clear guidelines in the current time, it helps us stay in for the long haul. Educators report stress levels on par with nurses and physicians. So establishing balance and boundaries is crucial for remaining passionate and effective in one's work. We often know educators are not just teaching their content area, but they are often acting as nurses and physicians and social workers and all of these things. And so it's critical to think about where and how individuals can have boundaries to really stay committed and invested in the work for the long term. So we've broken down this high leverage practice of establishing balance and boundaries into 3 strategies. First, it's critical to understand the cost of caring, and we'll talk a little bit about that. It's also important to form healthy habits. And lastly, something that is often incredibly hard for educators, asking for help and learning to say no. So we'll dive into each of those right now. First of all, understanding the cost of caring. This is not an abstract idea. This is not when people feel oversensitive, overwhelmed, and overtired. This is true experiences that happen when we are bearing witness to and supporting others through their own struggles. So the cost of caring is not related to environmental contributions. It's really relational in nature. And when we are engaged with somebody else's struggle or suffering, there is a cost associated with that caring. This cost is often referred to as compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, or vicarious trauma. All of these have subtle differences, but they come from this relational cost of caring, and they can all lead to burnout. Furthermore, that's the impact on the educator, but the students' experiences are also compromised when adults are emotionally depleted in this way. Educators who are aware of this concept and this experience of the cost of caring can work to prevent this experience through preventative strategies that reduce their risk and increase their resiliency. So the first step is just knowing and understanding what it is, so we can then take steps to prevent it or address it when it does happen. And so one of the ways that is really critical to prevent and or work around this idea of cost of caring is forming healthy habits. In order to be a whole, healthy, happy human being and educator, we need to have some healthy habits in place. The length of the school day, the demands of the school day, especially when that school day may be happening within your home, it can be incredibly hard to remember and follow through on healthy habits. But these strategies for self-management, self-care, and physical health are key to educators' effectiveness. So we're thinking about nutrition, exercise, adequate sleep. These are the foundations for combating physical, emotional, and mental stress. We often talk to students about eating a good breakfast, getting in some physical exercise, and getting enough sleep. But we really need to think about, are we doing those same things for ourselves? When educators engage in more healthy behaviors, they cope more effectively and experience less stress. This seems pretty intuitive and common sense. However, most of us are not actually living out that understanding. So teachers who are happy and healthy are shown to enjoy greater job satisfaction, as well as decreased burnout and professional turnover. So again, we think about how this cost of caring can really increase levels of burnout, and also not having these healthy habits in place can lead to burnout. So we want to decrease that cost of caring, increase those healthy habits to help us be long-lasting professionals. And lastly, this is a tricky one for many, many people in school settings. It is critical to ask for help and learn to say no. It's been found that overcommitting and overextending can impact one's ability to pursue purpose and focus on priorities. An inability to say no negatively impacts one's mental health, their relationships, and their productivity. So oftentimes we're saying yes to so many things. There's so many competing demands. We're always trying to get everything done. And that really takes a toll on us as individuals, as educators. It also takes a toll on our relationships with students, staff, and families, and it decreases our productivity. So at times when we often feel like we're trying to get so much done, we're being less productive because we're not asking for help and we're not learning to say no. So most workplace support is provided in direct response to a request for help. So in order to have that sense of support, we often have to ask for the help. Knowing how and when to ask for help, or simply how to say no, is essential for advocating for oneself in the workplace. Again, this is an area, how often do we drive home the importance with students of like, you know, be humble, ask for help, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for the support of others, and like have your boundaries, say no when you mean no. However, we also have to live out those guidelines and model that for our students. And a special shout out here to any school leaders. It is incredibly important to create an atmosphere in which asking for help and saying no is welcomed and supported. Educators need to feel like they can tell a school leader if something is too much or overwhelming and they need some things taken off their plate. They need to be able to be in a community where asking for help is encouraged and not frowned upon. So again, those school leaders in the crowd, you have that extra responsibility of not just doing this yourself, but also creating the culture in which other adults can do it as well. So let's pause for a second and process to internalize some of these ideas. Thinking first, when was the last time you asked for help? When was the last time you said no to a request? And how did you feel in both of those situations? Did you feel empowered? Did you feel embarrassed? Did you reap the benefits? Did you have a negative reaction? Just note when those times happened and how they made you feel. Then thinking of the 3 specific strategies we covered: understanding the cost of caring, forming healthy habits, and asking for help and learning to say no. Of those 3 strategies outlined, which do you feel pretty confident in, that you've done the most work on already, and maybe you feel like you're a good model for others? Is that in understanding this cost of caring, informing and carrying out healthy habits, or is it asking for help and learning to say no? Conversely, of those 3 strategies, which do you feel you could focus on a little bit more? And why is that the strategy that you think you need to focus more on? What are you seeing or feeling in your life that reminds you that you really should be focusing on that strategy? So again, we always just take that time to pause and process so we can internalize and really connect to some of the ideas that were covered. And that, my friends, is the 6th of 6 mini modules focused on SEL for educators. So here we have our snapshot, which is included in the toolkit, which gives you the high-level overview of our 5 high-leverage practices. So as a reminder, we covered examining identity, exploring emotions, cultivating compassionate curiosity, orienting towards optimism, and establishing balance and boundaries. These 5 high leverage practices are shown by research to benefit the experience and the social emotional development of educators in school settings. So if you are an adult in a school setting, think about the ways that you can bring these practices into your own work as an educator. If you are a school leader, think about how you can model these practices and cultivate an environment in which other adults can also engage. If you want to learn more, which we hope you do, please go to this link to check out the toolkit in its entirety. In that toolkit, you will find the entire professional learning presentation, which has all of these slides and then much more from all of the other modules. You will also find a companion guide, which gives specific activities to engage with these practices and really start to build up the skill sets either independently or in community with others. The snapshot, which I just showed you, is a great little handout to summarize all of this information, to perhaps hang next to your desk in a classroom, in a staff room, to remind each other and yourselves of how to engage with these practices. And lastly, we have a comprehensive reference list that lists out all of the research and the studies that we connected to in order to create this toolkit. So please go to our newly designed brand new website and check out the toolkit in its entirety. As always, we are happy to hear feedback, thoughts, questions, ideas. You can reach us at info@transformingeducation.org. We also encourage you, as I said, to check out our newly redesigned website, subscribe to our newsletter, and follow us on all of these forms of social media so you can see our other new tools that are always coming out. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your support. We value all that educators are doing now and always. Please engage with these practices as yourself, as an adult in a school setting, so that you can be your best self for the students you're working with. To everyone, take care and be well.